Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Artcasters number 95, and we are a man down today. I guess Josh came down with like a bad reaction to a tetanus shot, so Josh isn't here today, so it's going to be like a two-man show, but I brought on an old friend of mine who I used to work with in game design. Everyone, I'd like to meet Chris Mendoza.
Hey, everyone.
So Chris and I used to work at a game design company, and since then he's worked for a few different game design companies, but he's been doing kind of working for the man for a while, but he's recently decided to kind of go the freelance route, and he's also building a brand and everything. So first of all, Chris, why don't you tell everyone where they can find you?
Well, my personal stuff you can find at chrismendozaart.com. The branded stuff is littleninjastudios.com. And from each of those websites, you can find all the appropriate social media links: Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, all that stuff.
Yeah. I put a link to Little Ninja Studios in the description, so you can find them probably through there and everything. So anyway, so Chris, so we worked together. How long ago was that?
Ooh, I left that company in 2010.
2010, yeah, okay.
So 7 years ago.
And you kind of continue to do game design after that. I did a little bit after that company, but then I started going into other areas and everything, and I freelanced for a while. So as far as my freelance history, and the one reason why I want to kind of get Chris on is because a lot of people that are watching this, they're wanting to go freelance, and usually when Josh and I talk about it, it's like, well, that's something we kind of did a while back, but things have kind of changed a little bit, so we don't know if our advice is valid anymore. So I want to get Chris on because he's taking that plunge right now and kind of find out what he's doing, if he's finding out anything that are different, what different tactics you use nowadays than you did way back when we were doing it. But my experience with freelance was kind of, off and on. I think the longest stint I probably did solely freelance was probably about 5 years, but I always either work part-time and then freelance or, whatever. So, but anyway, so Chris, what have you kind of been up to, and what kind of led you to decide to go freelance full-time?
Freelance full-time. Well, I kind of got forced into it. Forced my hand. So a little bit about my background. I have a background in medical illustration. It's very specific, very specialized, and it's allowed me to get some work that I don't know if any of your guests or anyone, because I know you deal a lot with the cartoonists and comic guys, which is my fun background. I love pop culture, and if I could do sequential art, I totally would.
Yeah, I think it's cool that just real quick, I think it's cool that you've done the medical illustration, but then if you look at his website and the Little Ninja Studios, you see what a great cartoonist he is and everything like that, and he's done a lot of that kind of stuff too. So he kind of travels between two worlds.
Yeah, that's kind of kept me afloat, the medical illustration. So the last job I had, I was doing a lot of that, and mainly it's studio gigs, and I've kept those going for basically security. You hear a lot of artists who say that they have to work a full-time job and then do their art on the side. I've been lucky enough to have my full-time job be art and then still have the chance to do art on the side. And I like studio jobs because the security of a steady paycheck. If you're freelancing, you always, or maybe not always, but you always hear about the horror stories of people who, it's hard to get paid or hard to do your taxes, things like that, which I hate taxes. But I left my last job because my wife got hired across the country, and this and that stipulations. I couldn't stay on remotely, but luckily I had my LLC to start my little ninja studio with every intent of doing my own side gig. But that ended up kind of being, this is my business now. So my full-time job became my freelance job, and luckily I already had a business in place to pursue that.
Yeah, that's awesome. So basically the company that you're doing your freelance stuff under is also the Little Ninja Studio?
Yep. Yep. So my brand is my company, and it creates kind of a predicament for me in the sense that my intention was to not do the medical illustration or the fantasy art or any of the stuff that was a little more high realism, any of the game design or the like visual development stuff under Little Ninja. It was solely going to be cartooning for a while, and actually it was going to go. I was going to venture into picture books, children's books, things like that, because that's a harder style for me to work in. But yeah, no, it just ended up being the job I have now, and the predicament is trying to separate the styles and how do I divide that original intention of doing one project under a brand versus making a living under that brand.
Yeah, and that's a struggle I've had too. Like there were so many things that I wanted to do as far as, you know, things I like to draw and everything, and with my brand, and it took some kind of, I don't know, switching things around or whatever thinking, but basically I realized that, you know, the kind of things I like to draw are like robots and alien. I mean, if you've seen my channel, you know what I'm talking about. Oh, yeah. But yeah, so like robots, aliens, zombies, all that kind of stuff. And then, but I also had this kind of, back when I was freelancing, my whole thing was character design. You know, that was kind of what I specialized in. And now pretty much everyone and their mother specializes in character design. But at the time, it was kind of a unique thing that not a lot of people were doing, as far as like branding wise. Like, you know, I can design your branding, I can create, you know, a character mascot for you and build off of that and everything. But I started and I had this kind of weird, I always had this like weird factory logo, and it was basically, the premise was that this is sort of the, you know, factory that all these characters are come out of, you know. But I also had this affinity, I guess, for mad science. So I was thinking, well, if I just do some tweaking with sort of this weird contraption that is supposed to be this character design creator thing, and actually change it to look more like a mad science lab. And so I did all that, and I figured, well, you know, robots and aliens and zombies, most of those things are usually developed in some sort of lab, you know. And I took all that and I kind of figured out a way to make it work. And there's some things that don't fit quite into there that I still like to draw every now and then. Like I do a lot of pop culture stuff, and it's really a lot of geek-based stuff. So anything that kind of geeks are interested in. But I just kind of try to roll it all under that banner. So it seems like it's kind of the same thing. I mean, I guess, I don't know. So are you looking more towards, are you looking to get clients more in the, you know, more in the medical illustration venue, or?
You know, right now it's I take whatever I can. So I've had clients all the way from cartooning to animation and medical illustration, because you got to get paid, you know.
Yeah.
But for me, I think ideally the goal was to be my own boss and only take jobs if they really, really, really interested me. You know, now that's going to be years down the line. You know, I think we both know very similar people back in Phoenix who have hit that kind of success level where they were able to, you know, leave their full-time jobs and pursue their own studios and be their own bosses. But with me, I didn't ever want to. I think the goal eventually was to just answer to nobody, you know?
Right. Yeah, I kind of do that part-time, I guess. I mean, I have a full-time job, and then, but because I have that, and back to kind of what you were saying about having that security, I would just kind of argue that, you know, a full-time job necessarily isn't always as secure as you might think. I mean, in some ways it is, but we've worked at enough game companies, or at least I know a lot of the, maybe you had a little more success in that than I did, but pretty much most of the ones that I worked at went out of business. And, you know, it got to the point where it's just like, now any full-time job I'm at, any day I go in there, it's like, well, they could lay me off anytime. So I always have that in the back of my head. Now, whether I'm that prepared, I am constantly working on my own stuff, but my own stuff isn't anywhere near the place where it can support me yet. But it's, you know, but I'm working at it. And that's kind of the thing, is like, now I've kind of reached this point where I don't want to take on any freelance work, you know, and it could, if something came along that was just awesome or whatever, or it was just too much, you know, too good a deal to turn down or whatever, then that could be the case. But I don't have to worry about, like, if somebody comes to me and say it's, you know, say it would be a decent amount of money or something, but I'm just not really wanting to do it. I can just say, no, I don't really do that. And so now I'm in sort of this position where I can turn stuff down, and that's kind of a good feeling, even though it's not the ideal place where if you were just doing your own stuff and you were in a position where you can turn down stuff because you want to do your own stuff, that would be pretty good. That is probably years down the road if that ever happens. So, but yeah, so what are you kind of doing to promote? Like, let's say this, if you had your druthers, what would you be doing? Would you just be doing your own brand, or would you be seeking out like certain like high level freelance jobs or clients that you'd want to work at?
So right now, all the promotion it's light social media, and I know for a fact I'm not going as hard on that as I should be.
Yeah.
I try to simplify the process. I try to automate it. I did some research into that. So I found apps like Instagram and where you can link up your Twitter, your Facebook, and all that stuff. And I'll do a sketch every so often, and I'll just post that. So it's at this point, it feels almost narcissistic. It's like, look at my drawing. I'm gonna put it on my refrigerator door of an internet and see who likes it.
Yeah.
You know, without any actual product to sell. Even though I do have a store, I have a whole fulfillment site for both my Chris Mendoza art stuff and Little Ninja Studios. It's just at this point, you know, before I actually started working under my own brand, there was really never an opportunity to pursue two jobs full time. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Well, it seems like you've got all your ducks sort of in a row. It's just a matter of getting the word out, which is pretty much the same position I'm in right now. My stuff's not all totally automated, which that is intriguing in some ways. I don't know exactly what you're using, but like, as far as, you know, to me, there's certain things that's just, I can get a bigger profit margin if I ship it out myself, and there's certain things that's not the case with, that I'll let other people do it. But so yeah, it just kind of depends. But you know, you've got your, I mean, if anyone hasn't seen Chris's store, Little Ninja Studios, you can go there and you see, I mean, it looks the website looks great and everything. So you can definitely see that you're ready for, you know, once you start getting those sales. And that's kind of where I am too. I'm thinking about, you know, maybe doing some, you know, boosted post on Instagram or like even Facebook or Etsy, you know, just to kind of see how that works, seeing if you put a little money behind it, if more people become aware of it, reaching out to places that I know are interested in what I'm doing, whether it's, you know, more geeky science type people that buy that kind of artwork. But it's weird because I've been trying to get, just recently I've been trying to post a little more on Instagram, because obviously that's, I think, a great avenue for getting your work out there. But the one thing I'm finding is, like, if I post like a sketch, like a work in progress sketch or something like that, it's just me, you know, just showing off some work I'm working on, I usually get a lot of likes and stuff. If I post something that's like on a t-shirt or something like that, I don't get that many likes. If it looks like it's some part of a store, or it looks like it's something I'm trying to point people at to buy, I think people are just naturally, they kind of look at that and say, well, maybe I shouldn't like that, because then they'll know that I saw it and that I'm just not in a position to buy it, or I'm not going to buy it now, so I won't even like it. So I don't know, you know, it's weird, but you notice that, because it's just weird, because one day I'll post one thing that's just a sketch and get a decent amount of likes, and the next time if I post like a shot from, you know, my store or whatever, it's like not as much, even though the artwork is probably better because it's more finished and everything. Or maybe, you know, I could be reading that wrong too. It could just be people on Instagram, as far as the art space, are looking more, just like they like looking at process stuff more. I don't know, but you know, I don't try not to let that get me down, because I don't really want to get in that frame of mind where you're kind of like what you were saying, where you're a little afraid that you're being too heavy-handed or posting, you know, I don't think me posting stuff like that, unless I'm just doing it too much, is going to cause people to stop, you know, or like, unfollow me or whatever from Instagram. I think they may not hit that like button or whatever, but but they're probably still seeing it, and that's part of it. It's building that awareness of the brand, even if you're not selling anything off the bat. If people know about it, that's kind of half the battle, I think.
Yeah, what? One of the things I've been trying to grapple with lately is I know where I'm posting, right? And I know who my followers are. My followers are, for the most part, other artists. So you have the DeviantArt profile, or you have the ArtStation profile. Then you have everything. The obligatory. This is everything you need to be a successful artist on the internet. All those profiles. Mm-hmm. And I realize I'm one fish in a big pond, talking to the other fish, and maybe they buy my stuff, or maybe they just say, I can do that myself. So my whole goal with my studio was pretty much, and I'm sure there's a lot of artists out there. You live in your own head for a good portion of your day, even when you're at work, even if you're doing an art job or you're in game design, you're always like, well, I have my own world I live in, and I have this whole universe. And that's kind of my little ninja thing. The whole reason I want to get into books, I want to create not just characters, not just do character development, not make someone else's games or bring someone else's idea to life. I want to get everything in my head out into the world, and that's what I want to market in a sense. So build a universe that I know exists in my head, bring it out there, and then introduce the people to that, and then sell the art afterwards. So I don't know. I want to Walt Disney it. Bring a product and then have supplemental income based off that product. So, like, for example, I have 4 or 5 children's books already written out, just ready to be illustrated, and then I have a couple projects with some buddies. It's just a matter of, hey, now you have your own business, do it. Get the work done.
Yeah. I was gonna say, because when you were talking about a lot of the people that kind of follow you, and this is the same for me, are other artists. And I think that's kind of where we naturally gravitate to, because those are the people we like to talk to, and we like to spend time with, and those are the coolest people out there, are other artists. But I think we need to also reach out to other areas, and that's why I'm talking about, for me, in my specific space, science teachers, educators, engineers, people like this, because you kind of get in this mindset that you're your own target market when you're not, not usually, just because I'm an artist, and I don't buy a lot of art just because I'm an artist, and I try to support people when I can, but I don't have a whole lot of disposable income to go out and just buy prints and things, stock my whole house and everything like that. But there are people like that do, and some of them are artists, but not a lot of them. And those are the kind of people you need to reach out to, because even like when you're pricing your stuff, because a lot of people think, well, they think of themselves as their target market, and like, well, I really couldn't afford to spend that much on a print. But that doesn't necessarily mean there are other people out there that couldn't, that, depending on, your stuff I look at it and it definitely looks like it would be great in that children's space. Like, it's more like kids would gravitate to it. So whether it's parents or however you present that, other than just me looking at it as an artist and saying, I love this style, it's really cool, it's really cute. And, you kind of have to look beyond your own, kind of who you are. And
yeah. So,
but I also think, I don't know, because I see a lot of the stuff your whole brand, it's super cute and everything like that. And I see like there's a lot of the like fan art stuff that you do as well. But I went to your website, but it looked like most of the stuff that you're selling is not the fan art. And
I actually refuse to sell fan art.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same. I'm in the same thing. I don't want to get. We always get in this discussion, and it pisses some people off. But I'm kind of that same way, where I don't really sell fan art unless if I do an original sketch and somebody wants to buy it, I'll give it to them. But I don't make prints and things like that. Not to say that that's wrong. That's a whole other topic or whatever. But I if you didn't have the same hangups that I do about fan art, I could definitely see that stuff selling like crazy at conventions, because it seems anytime I go to a convention, that's kind of stuff that's selling like crazy. And I mean, because people know those characters and everything, and that's the biggest hurdle, and that's the hardest thing for people like you and me to get over is, I mean, that hurdle anyway, is that we're trying to introduce somebody to something that they've never seen before. Now, gradually with yours, I mean, people know ninjas, and ninja itself isn't a trademarked character as a genre. So you can tap into that. And so that's definitely something. And you can kind of, so, I mean, if you were going to do, say, and I've been looking into this lately, if you're going to do like a boosted, like Instagram post or everything, you can get really specific as far as people who like ninjas, people of this age bracket, people who like cute stuff, you know, and you can narrow that down. So when you send stuff out, you know, it's reaching that target market. And, you know, Facebook's kind of the same thing. I was able to do that when I ran my Kickstarter. I got really, you know, I got people who like comics, who also, and it's not just people like comics or people who like zombies. It's people like comics and zombies and you know, whatever else, you know, so you can kind of narrow it down, and it's, you know, so it seems like that would be the way to go. I mean, that's what I'm going to start looking into, and just see kind of if it works, you know. Of course, you know, it takes money to do that, but there's, you know, some of these, you can do a little testing with just a very little bit of money and see kind of what works if you're getting eyes on your stuff doing that. So, I mean, that's one way to do it, but also, you know, reaching out to blogs and things like that. I don't know. Have you thought about that? Have you thought about beyond just your kind of, you know, the market of just other artists, where you think people might, you know, you find people that are into what you're doing?
Yeah. So not from the point of just like reaching out for the product, because now like running the business full time it's relatively new. Before that, I was still trying to get known, so it's more of networking. So when I reached out, it was like, you know, I applied for that kind of art internship at Imaginism Studios. It was kind of networking like that, where it's like, I'm gonna go learn and meet people in the industries that I want to be a part of, or submitting stuff to like Imagine FX, and just trying to get like in their spotlight portfolio thing, which I actually never ended up doing, but it was one of those things where it's like, yeah, can I? Sure, why not? But now it's definitely something I think I should do, I want to do. But again, it's like, you know, I got a pretty steady clients, and then a bunch of, I can't call it freelance now because it's just clients. Everyone else I get is just a client.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think my freelance, my side job is try and get myself off the ground with my own products. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know who to reach out to. I mean, I've thought about, like, you always hear about the big song and dance of getting noticed in industries that are really competitive, like children's books or just illustration in general. But now there's all this stuff out there, like Create Space, or, you know, self-publishing and fulfillment sites, where it's like, yeah, maybe I'll just try and do it alone. You know, put a book out there, and if it works, it works. If Amazon features me, they feature me. That's kind of, I need more research before I say that's going to be how I do it. But yeah, I don't know who to reach out to now, is what I'm saying. You know, it's
yeah.
so,
I mean, I definitely see your work, like, as far as children's books and stuff. I was just listening to a podcast. I think it was the Creative South podcast, and they had this illustrator. His name, I think, was Luke Flowers. And I had kind of, at first I'm listening to this thing and the guy's talking, and I didn't make the connection, but I had seen his stuff before. There's this show on the internet. It's really, if you're into Henson, stuff like Jim Henson and puppets and stuff, it's called Leaky Timbers. If you just Google that or if you do a YouTube search, you'll see it. But he did some of the character designs, I think, for that. But he did some, I guess, some like younger reader ninja books. So somebody came to him looking for him to do that. So I think there's little kids must like ninjas. So I think it's just a matter of doing research and, like, you know, finding, you know, you have to go a little deep, because if you do ninjas, you're going to find all kinds of stuff, and then just kind of hone it down and find, you know, if there's anything, like I said, bloggers or anyone that writes stuff about ninjas, or look and see other people that are kind of doing, you know, similar things that aren't necessarily competitors, but maybe they're doing like ninja plushies or something that you don't do or whatever, and, you know, try to either collaborate with them or kind of just kind of break down what they're doing, and maybe see if you can figure out where their audience is coming from, and try to tap into that, or at least, you know, try to build a similar audience. You know, and the thing is, I mean, these are all things that I need to do myself, and it's just, you know, I can only focus so much time on so many things at a time. But I mean, I've got, you know, lists and things of all these things that I have to do for marketing and everything like that, which eventually I'll get to, but it's just, you know, it's a matter of resources and everything. But I mean, but I think I'm in a position where I kind of have a pretty good understanding just from going out to conventions and things, and knowing, and that's a good test market. And like, I would definitely suggest, especially now that you're in California, and I know you're a little outside of LA, but if it's not too much travel, if you can get, because there's tons of shows in California. So if you can just get into a few of these shows, and just, even if you're not, you know, even if you're only making table, just kind of as market research, and kind of find out the kind of people that like your stuff, because that's when I really started to realize who my kind of super fans are, the people that keep coming back, and the people that buy multiple things, and the people that just love my stuff. Because the average person, they'll come to my thing and they won't see anything they haven't seen from a Marvel movie or Doctor Who or anything like that, and they'll just walk on by. But there's a small percentage of people that just gravitate to it and love it. And I found a lot of those people are people who are, like I said, science teachers, or who work for NASA, or, you know, I've had more than a couple rocket scientists that have bought my stuff. And so I know those people exist. And the comic conventions might not necessarily be where they congregate, but there are places out there where they do. Like, and this is something I slept on that I really wanted to go to, but there's like science teacher conventions and things like that. So that's the kind of, because I kind of know the people that like my stuff, so I just need to go and really make an effort to find them. And I think the stuff will start to move and build a bigger audience. But right now it's just kind of like, I'm still doing the same thing where I'm kind of just promoting to other artists. And I don't want to say that's a bad thing, because these are my people, you know. But you eventually kind of have to branch out, because if you're only concentrating on other artists, you're missing a huge section of people that would probably really like your stuff. It just, they may not know anything. They don't follow artists themselves. If they see art, or they see some humorous sci-fi or science take or on something or whatever, they probably snatch it up. They're just not familiar with it, because they're not watching videos on like how to be an artist, how to draw, which is the kind of videos and stuff I put out there. So they're not going to find me, because they're not looking for that type of thing. So you got to kind of bring that to them. Yeah.
And all that stuff, you know, all the, like, I got to commend you, Scott, for doing everything you do for your brand, because videos are super intimidating. You know, just getting out there and doing videos constantly, nonstop, doing your newsletters, having your Facebook groups, and doing your art, and doing everything. I'm doing a fraction of what you do. So I don't think I'm anywhere near like actually launching a brand.
Well, I'll tell you this: if you go to your website, I mean, I think your website right now looks way better than mine. I mean, you may not have many products or whatever, you know, but it looks super professional. There's still stuff on my website that I really want to change and everything, and, you know, I might just start sending people to, you know, I've got another URL that's just madsciencesupplycompany.com that I might just send people to, because it goes like right to the store. Because right now, if you go to my website, it still has a portfolio there of like freelance stuff that I've done. So what I'm doing now is I'm trying to migrate some of those images off onto like Dribbble or some other place where I can point people to if the need arises, if I need to start building more client stuff. But I don't really want to show that stuff as much. I just want to show what I'm doing, and I don't want to confuse people, because that's another thing that I'm finding out just from being out at conventions, is the more stuff you throw out there or you bring to a convention, the more it confuses people, and the more you can simplify, the more people can just look at something in one glance and say, oh, I see what this is, without having to explain, well, it's kind of like a mad scientist thing, and I sell prints, and I sell messenger bags, and I sell bow ties, but it all has to do with mad science and all this stuff, and you just can't explain that to people. People have to get it like that. So whether, I don't know that if that means I'm going to change what I do, because I kind of like the way I'm doing things. I just need to keep working a little harder, because I'm kind of doing it the hard way, I guess. But yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, well, that kind of brings me to an idea I've been having, kind of like thinking about this show the whole time. Is I mentioned to you earlier that I was listening to the last episode with you and Josh about going big or going home. Work hard. And Josh is very opinionated. I love listening to that guy. He's very, like, I think you guys got on him for being harsh about the artists who are like natural talents, and just like, they just post stuff or a sketch, and they're like, I'm an artist. But I think business and art is, and people will hate me for saying this, some of the full-time, like, I work my ass off to be an artist, artists are going to hate me for saying this, but I think that the light and fluffy, spiritual artists will agree with me. For some people, it's all about where you are in life. It's a journey. And if you're not ready to start that business, if you can't get out of that funk of not being ready, you're not going to start it. And for me, I was so comfortable just having a secure full-time job. I never got out of that funk of, there was no urgency to start this,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's, I don't know. I forget, I was going to say something that I thought was poignant, but it kind of slipped my mind.
I apologize.
No, it was me. Yeah, I don't know. It's that's, I kind of wish Josh was on, because he, I think basically what he was saying about being a little hard on people, and I definitely see what you're saying, and now it's kind of coming back to me, but it's the sad truth, really, and some people don't want to hear it, and I wouldn't have wanted to hear this, and I had no idea when I said I wanted to be an artist, is that artists or good artists, or, I mean, that's not enough. You have to be a businessman and a marketer, or business person, sorry. But you have to do all this other stuff. It's not enough just to draw. For some people, it's a rare case, but some people are just so unbelievably amazing that they can just draw, and people will flock to them. But in the vast majority of cases, that's not going to happen. No. And I don't think you could expect to happen. Like when I first started off, I wanted to do comics, and I thought, Stan Lee was going to knock on my door and, snatch me up and, put me on Marvel Comics and all this stuff. And it just doesn't work like that. You've got to go out and beat down Stan Lee's door or whoever's door, and let people know you're around. And it takes a lot of time. And it's the thing about art, is that it's just so difficult. The only way you're really going to make it, for the most part, is just to have this passion. Like, that's all. There's just no other option. And, and whether you're good at business or not, I certainly wasn't. I don't know that I'm great at it still, but I make an effort. I'm always, when I'm drawing, I'm always listening to podcasts or anything like that on business or whatever to help me learn. And you've got to fill in those gaps. Whereas before these weren't things that you thought you were going to have to do or thought you'd be any good at. And you just have to learn how to do it. It's just part of being an artist. And in some ways it's unfortunate, because I think, ask any artist. Well, I mean, there are certain like businessy type things that I really get into. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool, and I like learning this stuff. But if I could do whatever I wanted, it would just be drawing what I want to draw and have people want to purchase it or support me doing it or whatever. So, but it's not always that easy.
No, it isn't.
So,
and that's the thing, you know, there is a lot of raw talent out there, and no matter how good you are, there's someone out there, either they do it better than you, or they're going to come along and do it just like you, and you're not going to be unique, you know?
yeah, and the sad thing is, somebody who is like a mediocre artist who's an unbelievable marketer is going to do far better than somebody who's an unbelievable artist and a crappy marketer. And it's just, you know,
yeah,
as a rule anyway. I mean, there's always exceptions to that rule, but
I think I heard on one of your other shows, maybe it was you or one of your guests, talking about not doing, you know, not safe for work art. And that one used to be one of my big gripes, you know. I don't know if it's true, but I always told myself, I'm like, if I would just do some not safe for work art, which I don't want to do, it's kind of against, I don't know if it's principles or morals. It's just, or if I just think it's cheating somehow. But you know, I don't want to do stuff like that. But I keep going back to it. It's like that crutch when you're down in the dumps. You're like, well, I could just do that. I could just do like something voluptuous and naked and make money that way. People like that. You know, it appeals to that base human instinct.
yeah.
So I don't know. I feel like if you have more principles and more morals business wise, and I don't know where I'm going with this. I could be insulting a lot of people. It's harder to make a buck. You know what I'm saying?
No, I would agree, because I mean, and I struggle with that, and with fan like the not safe for work stuff. I wouldn't do that, not because I'm a prude or I have an issue with that at all. Just because it's just not something that I really enjoy drawing. It depends how far you go with it, I guess. I mean, I like drawing sexy women and stuff like that, but you know, any more than that, it's just that it's like, I don't know, it's just not something that I'm interested in doing. Now, if you're doing that just because you think it sells, then, I mean, to each his own, but I would kind of have a problem with that. If you're doing it because you generally like drawing, you know, that subject matter, then I don't have a problem with it. I think you kind of have to draw, you know, what you like to draw. I just chasing trends and things just because they're trendy. I kind of have an issue, you know, I take personal issues with that. Just at least that's not something I want to do. But for me, it's like the same thing with fan art, because I know if that's all I was selling was fan art, I would, you know, I'd go to the conventions. I would make probably 4 or 5 times as much as I can pull at a convention now. And I see people that do that, and it's like, man, maybe I'm just doing this all wrong, trying to do my own thing, you know, because I just see how successful it is. I mean, there's people that I follow on Instagram, and there's one guy, he's just like unbelievable artist, but he's basically taking, you know, IPs and just, it's not just drawings. He's like making making enamel pens and all these different products. And it's like, I guess the owners of the IPs don't care, because it's like, and you know, some of the stuff he's kind of got his own style, but some of it just looks like he just drew it and put it on an enamel pen. It's like, but he's like making tons and tons of money. So I mean, I don't know, you know, I struggle with that. I mean, I'm constantly, this is something that goes on in my head all the time. I'm always thinking, well, you know, maybe I just need to do more fan art. And then I'm kind of like, I don't know what it is, you know. And for me, it's more like a personal choice. I don't, you know, I've got tons of friends that do fan art, and I don't even act like I don't do fan art. I just don't really market it or anything. I just kind of do it for fun. But even sometimes I even find myself doing less of that. But I don't know. It's weird. I think for me, I'm trying to find things that people will gravitate to, because it's something they're familiar with that isn't necessarily owned by somebody else. Now, whether that's going back to things that are in the public domain, or just things in general that people, if people like kaijus or you know giant mechs and things like that, it doesn't necessarily have to, and then some people make their own connections. Like I've got a print that's like a boxing type promotion print that's got this giant mech facing off of this kaiju monster, and says Mecha versus Kaiju, and they're like, oh, I like that Pacific Rim print. And like, it's not Pacific Rim. It doesn't have anything to do with Pacific Rim. I mean, Guillermo del Toro wasn't the first one to make a kaiju robot movie. I mean, so, yeah. But if somebody wants to connect those dots like that, it's like, that's all right, you know? So I don't know. But again, these are my own personal hangups. But I mean, if you don't have those hangups, I can tell you what. And if you wanted to take your little the stuff you're doing in that style of that little ninjas, that's the Captain America and stuff, the stuff that you're posting on like Facebook, I can guarantee you would clean up at a convention. So it's like, I don't know, you kind of I guess everyone has to do their own thing, and everyone's got their own opinions on it. I mean, that kind of stuff definitely. I think the fact that you're doing that can bring more eyes on your stuff.
And that's why I do. I do it to get attention. Like there are guys out there I follow. Like I think it's Derek Loffman, Scotty Young, guys like that.
Yeah.
And they have they work in other people's IP, but they do it in their style. It's more whimsical. But I think they get paid by Marvel and to do some of that. And at the same time, it's like they get permission to sell it.
Well, it's not quite like that. I mean, they don't necessarily. It's like an unspoken rule, but it's an unspoken rule for everyone. I mean, it's not technically. I don't think they. If they're selling prints that they created for Marvel, I guess legally that's okay. But if you just decide, well, I done work for Marvel, so I'm just going to draw whatever Marvel character I want and sell it, and technically that's not legal even if you're working for Marvel. But then you can look. There's so many different ways you can look at it, because like Marvel doesn't, unless you're a huge name. I mean, Scotty Young might be an exception based on where he's at right now, but most artists, Marvel pays, these comic book companies pay so little. It's like, okay, you can look at it like, okay, you're getting my work, and you're, I don't know how profitable even comic books are from Marvel's standpoint. They're probably at a loss, but you could say, I need to somehow, recoup my cost, because I'm basically almost giving you this work for next to nothing compared to, what you're getting out of it. Even if you're not making a profit, you're perpetuating these characters and letting people know more about these characters if you're using it for promotion or whatever. But comic book artists don't get paid a lot, so that's another way that they can, they can bring in income, is drawing these characters. So you can look at it like that too. I mean, there's so many different gray areas, but I don't know. But just because somebody works for Marvel and is selling, their own just sketches or whatever, to me, that's not any different from somebody who doesn't work for Marvel and they're selling Marvel stuff. I don't think because you work for Marvel that they're giving you a pass that they don't basically, they're not going to come out and say you can do this because you work for us. They just turn a blind eye because all the legal stuff. You're never going to hear any representative of Marvel saying, "Oh, fan art is okay to draw." They're just not going to make a statement at all. And then, who knows? I mean,
yeah.
Is it possible that somewhere down the line that Disney could say, this has gotten out of hand and shut it all down? Yeah. I don't know. I think
it's a lot scarier now that Disney's in charge.
What's that?
I think it's a lot scarier now that Disney's in charge.
Yeah. But then you can look at it like all these people are helping promote our properties too. So you can look at it so many different ways. And it's just like, I don't think you're ever going to get any kind of official stance from any IP owners on fan art,
Yeah.
But they're just going to kind of turn a blind eye, at least for now. But you never know. I mean, you could, like, say for tomorrow, if I just decided, the hell with it, I'm going to just do fan art because I know it's going to bring me money, and I spend all that time designing all these fan art pieces, and then that's the moment where they decide, yeah, we're going to put an end to this you doing fan art type thing. So who knows? You're kind of taking a risk and playing with fire, but it's monetarily, it's probably a risk it's willing to take, because a lot of people are making a killing doing it. So
ultimately, though, for me, and I don't know if you feel this, but I've been a production artist in various studios for so long, and you have that dream of creating something.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So I'd rather be a creator than just an artist. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and there's a lot of people like this guy that I'm talking about, and I'm not going to mention his name because I really do like his artwork, and I mean his stuff's so great, but maybe 5% of it is his own original stuff. Everything else, I mean, is just people are buying it because it's some property that they've heard of. So I mean, why? I mean, somebody had to create those popular properties in the first place. So who's to say you can't be the next person to do something like that becomes something like that? I mean, I know it's a long shot and everything, but but it can happen. I mean, we're basically, you know, gambling that we can do something on our own that other people will, you know, gravitate to. And it is kind of a gamble. I mean, it would definitely be much easier just to adopt somebody else's ideas and try to market that. So,
but even if you, even at the end of the day, if it's a gamble and you don't win, right, you lose out on this gamble. Wouldn't you feel more satisfied knowing that you did it your way? You know, you took a shot on yourself.
Yeah.
I don't know, rather than someone else's IP. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's kind of, it's a necessary evil for me. I like doing fan art for myself, like, but at the same time, it's a necessary evil when I post it because I'm out there trying to get noticed. You know, it's just like you can hashtag Captain America or Wolverine, and people are like, yeah, Wolverine, and maybe they follow you, but then that just leads to a whole thing of, oh God, it's just a rabbit hole, Scott. You know, like being a business owner, everything that you read into it, you can't just like a post on social media. You have to like a post and comment and create a rapport with the artist and go back and forth and get noticed that way. You have to know how to hashtag your stuff. You have to know the right time of week or right time of day to do a video or post. You have to know your audience. And I think you and I have kind of learned this from some of the people we worked under. Because I know the game studio we worked together in was pretty small. And pretty much all the studios I've ever worked in were really small. So I got to work really close with the CEOs or the COOs and kind of hear all the talk about, you know, who's your target audience, who's spending money, when are you getting revenue, so on and so forth. And that's for games, you know. There's so much stuff going on that an artist, if you're just out there drawing, you don't even think about. You know, like if I was going to draw Wolverine, or like, for example, I just posted to the Artcasters Facebook page a doodle of Nightcrawler I did. You know, probably posting it an hour ago wasn't the best time to get any hits, you know. But there's so much to consider that people don't tell you about. And you know, I watch a few people on YouTube like Bobby Chu or whoever, and they always have such great advice. But it always seems like when you get down to the fundamentals of business, there's advice on how to be a good artist. There's advice how to be a successful artist on the internet. But when it comes down to like the minuscule details of running a business, you're not hearing it for free. You know, it's some of those things that you have to experience.
Yeah. Well, that kind of it makes me want to ask you something you were talking about earlier. I think you mentioned it on the show, but you had said something about that you had taken some like art marketing courses, and I was just curious how those went for you, because there's a lot of those things that I want to sign up for, and I do a lot of that just because when I'm at my studio job, I've got YouTube playing in the background and I'm listening to all that stuff. Now the thing is, I know that probably most of that information that you would get from a course like that exists somewhere on YouTube for free, but it's trying to parse all that stuff out and finding the good information and weeding out the bad information, and that's the difficult part. So I want to kind of take one of those courses, but I'm just afraid that if I take one, it's going to be all that stuff that I already know based on, you know, these tidbits I've heard here and there and everything. So I was just curious how that course, if you found that course beneficial, or if you've been able to implement anything, or if you're planning on implementing any of those techniques, or.
Oh, I do plan on implementing, and I've kind of sadly ignored some of them. So it was a small course. It was cheap. You know, it wasn't one of those big $200-300 courses. It was kind of like a community-based course, and the people, it was all local artists, and they were really cool, but it was artists of a lot of different professions. I think a lot of it was geared towards fine artists. We had musicians in there, painters. I think I was the only illustrator, but a lot of the stuff was geared towards showing your work. But there was some marketing things, and some of the advice they had was, you know, pick your social media outlet, pick the one that you're good at. and then focus on that, you know. And speaking from experience, I really feel that's good advice, because in the past I've focused on, you know, let's post to Tumblr, let's post to Twitter, let's post to everything. And it gets a little overwhelming. You know, if you want to do a drawing a day or a video a day, luckily nowadays, those things are so interconnected where you can sign on with an account and you can post from one app to all your apps if you're lucky, or all the apps that you use. But they, you know, their advice was take one app or one social media outlet and really master that. Get your mailing list out there. You know, take all the emails of people, and that's that kind of scary thing where you don't want to be spamming people. So for me, I have a website, and I'm pretty sure it's still up, where you can sign up for a mailing list, which is better. But compile a list of people who, you know, you can mail about your work, and if they block you, they block you. If they spam you, they spam you. But you got to get yourself out there. So get your mailing list, get your one social media outlet done, and biggest thing was, who is your target audience? You know, who are you trying to hit up? Who's going to spend money on your work? And ultimately, that's the big kicker right there. Who's spending money? And it kind of circles back around to what I was saying before. For me, what I've been doing was just trying to get noticed, and get noticed by other artists. And maybe it's just this weird narcissistic sense of validation of, hey, I drew a nice picture, art world recognized me, which doesn't make you any money. Maybe an art director out there finds it, and they want you for a gig. But if everyone's doing a cartoon X-Men, you know, what differentiates you?
That is true. I mean, and that is, you know, if you are doing fan art, there's so many other people doing that. So, but as far as your mailing list, so what are you doing to bring people to your mailing list? Do you have like any kind of like a lead magnet or anything, or? Not
really, no. So I set up the website, and one of the things that was kind of on my list to do was really get into SEO and just optimizing it so it works better for me. I've tried keeping a blog. I just think, aside from drawing, I'm uninteresting, so I'm taking it down. I don't know. I don't write very well.
Yeah, but basically, my blog consists of me reposting my YouTube videos to my website, because you know, if somebody, I mean, that's the kind of information I would probably write on the blog, but I just don't. I'm such a slow typist and everything, and maybe one of these days I'll be able to, you know, have the time to actually do that. But so that's kind of my blog right now. But I definitely do want to start doing my own newsletter, and that's kind of what if anyone's has been watching these Artcasters videos for the past, I don't know how many weeks or months, and notice the same thing that I'm working on. It's like, so basically this is something, and it's like a series of these avatars that I'm going to try to get multiple uses out of. And one of them is for to kind of generate, you know, get people to sign up for my mailing list, because first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create these different avatar sets that I'm going to try to sell on Creative Market, which, if you're not familiar with Creative Market, it's a place where you can buy like digital goods, whether it's like, if you want to buy like custom Photoshop brushes or patterns or fonts or whatever, or if somebody wants, say if somebody's got an Etsy shop and they want to like have characters that they want to put on their, you know, little, you know, say birthday cards or something like that, then they can purchase like these custom illustrations that they can tweak and do whatever they want. So, and I don't know how successful it'll be on there, if they'll sell or not, I don't know. But there's so many other uses I want to use these for. So one of them would be, you know, I will take a sampling of each one of these little avatar packs, and I'll create a custom one that would be special for anyone that wants to sign up for the mailing list. So if they sign up for the mailing list, they get that pack or something else, whether it's a font or something of value to bring them to the the mailing list. And hopefully, you know, and as the mailing list goes on, I want to continue to offer stuff like that. Hey, anyone to sign up for my mailing list, here's another little freebie or whatever. And I also kind of want to carry that over to like Patreon. And if I have all these assets that I can use, and I can say I can take all my little monster characters and make a custom one and make stickers out of it or whatever, or something like that I can offer to patrons or anything like that. But basically trying to create one thing that has multiple uses that I can use to, kind of bring people in, and whether it's Patreon or a mailing list or whatever. So that's kind of that's kind of my plan. Of course, it's taken a while because the only real time I have to work on this is when I'm doing these Artcaster videos. But eventually I'll have these done, and we'll see where it goes with that. But a mailing list is super important, and I before that it was basically me just people that I knew were interested in my artwork from conventions. If somebody was super excited, I asked them to sign up for my mailing list, and I probably sent out one or two emails. But I think I think it's more of a matter of planning. I think what I plan to do is, when I'm ready, is basically come up with enough content, like here's a little article that I'm going to share, something of value to an artist or somebody who's just an art enthusiast or whatever, some product shots of things that I have in my store, and maybe even go as far as to creating enough content for 6 months to a year of newsletters. If I send one out once a month, create enough of that stuff so it's ready to go, and I don't have to think about it as much. And then then I can start sending those out and start building that mailing list. Because if I had to just go week to week or month to month and go, oh, what is my mailing list going to be this month? It probably wouldn't work. I mean, I find that for me, it's easier to plan that stuff in advance. And then once you kind of have a buffer going, then you can start thinking of future ones and just stay on top of it. Because it's really hard to play catch up if you're not prepared, at least for me. So that's sort of the strategy I'm working on right now as far as mailing lists and all that kind of stuff.
So Scott, is your content, when you're relating to people on your customer base, is it solely on the content of your brand? Or because I know some artists out there, they are, you read up on their site and it's very personal, whereas some people are just like, here's a brand and it's a subject matter.
Well, it's kind of a little bit of both. Like the one thing I've mentioned on the show before that I kind of struggle with is that there's a whole persona that I kind of portray as this sort of mad scientist, artist type guy who lives in an underground lair and creates stuff, which obviously is a little far-fetched, but I try to have enough of my own personality show through that people know that I'm genuine. But it's just all for fun, and it's tongue in cheek, and I don't play that too close to the chest. I mean, I will definitely break the fourth wall every now and again and stuff like that. But is that I kind of want everything to tie into the brand, but I'm trying to, I don't think you want to make it just all about you. I mean, if you look through my YouTube channel, you'll see that most of the videos that I put out there are tips and things to help other artists that are kind of going through this stuff, and that's why we do this show. Is just to talk about issues that we're having with trying to make a living doing art and all that kind of stuff. So so it's a little bit of my own stuff mixed in with tips, stuff that you guys can use. And then for instance, one of the things that I am doing, like when I do fan art right now, I've kind of limited myself to doing fan art of I've got a little series that I'm doing on my channel called Mad Genius Hall of Fame, where I just do fan art of different mad scientists or supervillains or evil geniuses, and I talk a little bit about them and everything. And it kind of, even though I don't own those characters, it ties into the brand. But it's weird because those videos don't get as much hits as some of the other videos I do. So in some cases, it's not just the fan art. I mean, I think you can reach an audience just by offering your expertise and stuff more than you can with just, oh, here's a cool picture of Beaker and Honeydew from the Muppets, or whatever other mad genius I decide to do a little fan art piece of. But again, I like doing that kind of stuff. So even though those don't get as many hits, I still like doing them. So I'm going to keep doing them. But they do. It's kind of got a loyal following, because there's always people posting like, oh, you should do this character or that character, and people do enjoy it. And that's the thing. Sometimes you've got to kind of niche down, and that may not be the biggest audience, but they're they're a little more invested, I think, than somebody that just, oh, this is something, this is, I need help with this particular thing, and this person's putting that out there, and thanks, but I'm on to the next video, and, you know, I probably will never watch any of your videos again. So, you know, so I don't know.
No, guilty question or a guilty secret. I considered briefly dressing up like a ninja for this. I was so inspired by your whole character when you do the mad scientist. I love seeing you at cons when you're all dressed up. I'm like, I know that dude. It's awesome. But you also have the background to make like the whole elaborate set too.
Yeah, but again, I will tell you something. I don't know if that really does anything, to be honest, because when you go to a convention, there's so much. It's such a spectacle. I mean, people, it's just too much. I mean, if I just had a regular, like a flat background or something that was a little less elaborate, I think it would probably bring in more people, more eyes to the table. Now, if I was standing out by myself and I had this crazy backdrop, you know, just if there wasn't all this other stuff, then people would look at it and say, oh, that's cool and everything. And there are people that do notice it. And I've got comments like, oh man, I love your booth. You got the best booth here or whatever. But most people don't notice that stuff. So no. You kind of have to, it's just weird. But again, that's something I like to do. So it's like, maybe I'm doing it wrong, but you know, sometimes you just do, you got to go with your gut and what you like to do. So, but whether you go so elaborate and do all this background and all this extra stuff, like my table is designed right now to look like a conveyor belt, and you know, and sometimes little kids, because they're at that level, that eye level, they notice it and they play with all this stuff and they like it, but a lot of other people don't even notice. So I mean, I guarantee you, you know, I don't think it would affect my sales one iota if I just put a regular black tablecloth instead of doing all that stuff, and it would be a lot easier than toting that stuff around. But I think you do need to kind of, it does help to present yourself, whether it's just something like even if you dress, and I know I remember you coming to work at the game studio, and sometimes you dress pretty nice and everything like that. So whether you just go in and you're dressing nice, or you do have what's that?
Thanks.
yeah, no. But if you know, that kind of stuff people do pay attention to that, because I mean, cosplay is a big thing, and if you can tie what you're wearing to what you're selling and kind of that stuff, I think people do take notice of. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, even now, I feel like I should be making more eye contact with everyone, but I'm just sitting here drawing because, you know, it's, as an artist, it's what you like to do.
Yeah, and I've heard conflicting things on that. I was listening. There's an artist on YouTube, Will Terry, who does really well at these shows. And
I follow him. Yeah,
of course, he's kind of the only thing he sells at shows is fan art, so that's part of it. But he says, you know, and I agree with him to a certain extent, that if you go there and you kind of just ignore people, or you talk with the other person at the table, or then he's of the opinion that is better for sales, because there are people that if you like, hey, how you doing? They're like, because they're, you know, maybe a little social inept, or they're just, you know, introverted or whatever, that kind of is a turnoff for them. But, you know, I don't know. It's like, I see that, and I definitely think there's some truth to that, but I think there's also truth to just being a welcoming, you know, presence. And that's why I don't really draw at conventions. I usually stand, but I do think, you know, I'll kind of, my technique is that if somebody's walking by, I will kind of like nod or say, how's it going, or whatever, but then I'll kind of go back to what I'm doing, whether I'm talking to other people at my table, just so they know I've acknowledged them, but that I'm not like being pestering or whatever like that. But then, you know, I tabled with another guy, Jeremy Burley, who we had on the show, and I was really impressed by the way he did things, which was basically without being like a carnival barker, but just, you know, he would go out there and like free postcard, and I was surprised how well that went. And then, you know, he would get them to pick up the postcard. Most of the time, yeah, they were able to pick up the postcard. They didn't just say no. You know, sometimes they did, but then he was able to kind of bring them in and say, you know, feel free to browse or whatever like that. And that worked really well for him. So So I don't know. There's different, and it might depend on your personality too. You know, different personalities work differently. I mean, if I try to do the same thing that Jeremy did, it might not work for me. So it really depends.
So that kind of brings me to my next point, or my next question. You had mentioned Patreon, and I noticed, like, I went and I did my research on Patreon, and all the artists out there, a lot of the artists, not a lot of them, but some of them who I looked into, I like their art, and it's kind of like, these are the guys making a lot of money, guys and gals. And I went through the rewards, and I noticed people giving away Photoshop files. Now, for me, you know, I went to school to learn illustration and all that stuff. And for the longest time, and to a certain degree, I still follow the Graphic Artists Guild kind of rules of stuff. And as far as like pricing and knowing your market. And in freelancing, you try never to give away your working files. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of a big no-no. That's, at least in medical illustration, my experience is, you know, you make art, and this is what a lot of people who don't have that, anyone tell them this, for artists, and this is where everyone gets thrown off. You know, you make art, and then you sell rights. You know, you sell rights for someone to use it electronically or for print for a certain amount of time, and they pay you for that. Or if they buy full rights, they have to pay a lot, you know, which is a complete 180 from, hey, you found me on Craigslist, this is your exposure portfolio piece, you know?
Yeah.
That's not how, like, the big illustrative artwork that I've been educated about, and this is probably like the top 10% of artists out there doing this, that's not how they get paid. You know, their passive income for, at least what I understood from school in medical illustration, was you sell rights. You never go give away your working file. So I'm on Patreon, and people are giving away, you know, as a reward, here's a Photoshop file. Now, for me, my biggest fear is, I'm gonna give you this Photoshop file, you're gonna go make a poster or a T-shirt or something. And well, at that point, what do you know, you got my art. You got my working file.
Here's what I have to say about that. I think I in some ways I agree, some ways I don't. I disagree. So as far as the Photoshop, you know, giving away your Photoshop files, you're not, I mean, you aren't giving them the rights to use it. Now, like you said, somebody could go ahead and do that and make a print or whatever. Two things. First of all, if they're already your Patreon, they're already supporting you. Now, maybe, you know, so if they make their own print, okay, but they've kind of already, you know, they've already supported you in some way, shape, or form. The second, I think the main reason why they're doing it is just to teach people how you're creating that process. Now, if you're keeping that close to the chest, and if you're worried that people are, oh, they're going to know my secrets and stuff, and that's something I'm really against, because first of all, I think sharing your art and letting people know your process and thing, I think that's a huge, that's a big way to get people to, you know, to gain an audience, and just sharing your work, because somebody may know all the steps that it takes to do what you're doing, but that doesn't necessarily mean they have the skill to carry out, or even the, you know, the desire to do that, or the ability to do that. Or like, I could tell you exactly, I mean, I've done enough research and stuff that I probably know exactly how to market my stuff and make it sell. Now, I don't really have the time to do all that right now. And that's the thing. I mean, you can show somebody exactly how to do something, but whether they follow through on that is a pretty slim chance that they're gonna take all of those things and actually do something with it. And if they do, kind of more power to them, because they're a hard worker, and they're you know, they're willing to put in the time. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm definitely all for like selling usage rights and things like that, but I think that's something different. You're not selling them the rights to use it. And if somebody wants to steal your artwork, they can find a way. I mean, there's really, you know, I try not to concern myself so much with that. But again, like I said, if they're already your Patreon, then and they're already supporting you. So, and they're probably not the kind of person, I wouldn't think they're the kind of person that would do that. Now that's not going to be, there's always going to be people that will do that, but they're not going to buy your artwork in the first place. So, you know, what do you do about it? So I kind of like that idea because, like Holly's in the chat, or she was, and she's been kind of struggling with Patreon based on her videos that she posts and stuff. But I think, and she does some stuff digitally or whatever, but anyway, but I think it's something that it doesn't take you any more work. So you've created that print, you're able to sell that print, but then you could use your file as something that people really want, and you're not having to put any extra effort because you've already done all that work. You're just sharing something that's fully complete. And you know, when you do that, you obviously want to make the stipulation that this is just for educational purposes. You're not allowed to use this and everything. And of course, like I said, somebody could still sell it behind your back. But also the internet is sort of, you know, they're kind of self-policing, where if people see somebody else using your artwork. So I think the chance that they'll actually do that and try to make prints and sell them is super slim without getting caught. And if they want to make a print themselves, keep going back to the same thing, but they've already they're supporting you anyway. So I don't know. I think people more look at that as a way to, you know, as a way to teach, you know, how you're doing it. And I think it seems like it's super successful. And again, any way you can, if you're doing a Patreon page, anything you can do, whether it's digital products or like your PSDs or anything that you can give that's not requiring you a lot of extra time. Because I think when people start Patreons, I keep saying going back, Patreon is the person that's supporting you. Patreon is the platform. Okay, so if you're starting a Patreon, then I think a lot of people, and this was my frame of mind to begin with, I wanted to do it like a fan club where I was going to send out, like, you know, buttons and all kinds of stuff like that. But the more you think about it, that can, you know, that could, you know, be a bad kind of precedent to set. So my idea, if I ever start a Patreon, is to do, you know, digital files, things that I already have that are of value to people, but aren't going to cost me a lot of money to ship, or, you know, or offer discounts on my store or whatever. Because if you get in a position where you're saying you're going to offer something that you have to constantly upkeep and everything, it just might not be worth it. And, you know, there's people out there that are kind of discovering that. Yeah. And then, so Holly did respond. She says Patreon makes her uncomfortable. She doesn't like handouts, and she, you know, that's her own hangout anyway. So, but yeah, I mean, so it works well for some people, and, you know, some people it doesn't. So I think you just need to find, and everyone's got their own thing. If you don't want to do it because you think it's like a handout, that's fine. But other people, you know, look at it like, hey, these are people that, I mean, if you go back to the original definition of what a patron was, it's somebody that's supporting you because they want to see you create more art or whatever. And it doesn't require anything in return. Now, different people can view it different ways, but that's for every individual artist or every individual person that wants to support an artist to decide for themselves, you know, and there's really no right or wrong way, you know, so. But
I don't know. It's just personal hangups, just trying to get over that stuff.
Yeah. It's everyone's. I've got my own for certain things, and, you know, certain things I don't care as much about. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm definitely, I don't want to give away, you know, rights to my stuff. But I'm kind of one to. To me, I don't see that as, you know, as a problem or anything that's against, like, the Graphic Artists Guild guidelines or whatever, everything to offer somebody that's, you know, supporting you, you know, a look into how you create your files and everything, as long as you're not, you know, stipulating that they can use it for anything. But that's, you know, again, that's my take on it anyway.
Yeah, another thing about that Graphic Artists Guild thing, no one ever wants to pay those rates, you know.
Yeah, it's, well, you know, yes and no. I mean, if you know what you're doing, I mean, you can find you know, there are people out there that understand the value of artwork, and, you know, big companies and things like that. If you can work that, and you know, if you've ever watched, I think it used to be called The School. Now I think it's called The Future, but it's Chris Doe. I forgot what his partner's name was, but anyway, they talk about the business of, you know, graphic design and stuff. And these are big time players. They're the kind of guys that are doing logos for, you know, 10 grand or more. And, you know, and there are people that understand that value. Now, there's a lot of people that don't, and it seems like the majority. But, you know, if you know what you're doing, and if you can make it work, then there are people that are willing to do that. And those are the places that are going to go places. I mean, a lot of these little pop-up places that don't want to invest in a decent logo, they're probably not going to be around much longer, because they're either going to get something that they go to 5 or 4, which is usually something that, you know, an artist stole from somebody else or whatever, or just, you know, basically copied somebody else's logo and used that, because there's just no way, it's not sustainable to make a really cool logo for what they're charging. And, you know, you run that risk. There's so many risks involved with that kind of stuff, and it's, you know, it's probably not going to be great. So I try not to concern myself as much with the people that are just doing work for next to nothing, because the people that want to pay that aren't the people I'm looking for anyway. So, you know, but yeah, it's tough, because I mean, it does, you know, in some ways it does kind of bring down when people, you know, offer stuff for next to nothing. It does kind of hurt the industry, but you know, it's not, yeah. Good.
Oh, you can finish, because I was going to kind of jump to another topic.
No, go ahead. I think I kind of.
I was on one of your other live streams, and I forget who said it, but somebody was talking about their Facebook page, and as soon as it went to like a business page, they started getting less hits or something.
Yeah, well, it was probably, well, I know I was talking, I'm kind of concerned with this too, because I've been thinking, I don't know if this is exactly what you're talking about, but I'm thinking about like running some like Instagram boosted posts and things like that with some of my stuff from my store. But I'm worried that might affect my organic reach, because I think, is this what you're talking about when I brought this topic up? Yeah, so, I mean, if you're, like, say with Facebook, if so many people see your stuff, and the minute you start paying for Facebook to post that, it's not in Facebook's best interest to share your stuff with a lot of people when they know, oh, this guy's willing to pay for it. So yeah, and I think that's kind of an issue. I don't know, even though Instagram is owned by Facebook, I think it's still a little different. And I don't know, I think, you know, I think I really need to test out maybe some of that kind of marketing and see if it works, because I need to, because I mean, I look at stuff like, if I see like a cool t-shirt with something, you know, I might click on that to buy that t-shirt. And I know there's a lot of people that do that, will see stuff like that. It's not necessarily the people that are following me on Instagram. I think a lot of those people are artists, and they're more interested in just the process stuff, like I mentioned. But there's a lot of people that, you know, I think a lot of those ads do work. And I know a lot of my stuff on my store is stuff that will sell and that people will want, but they just don't know it exists. So if I can reach out to some other people and hopefully bring them to the platform and get them to follow me on Instagram or whatever, I think it might be worth, you know, spending a couple bucks a day or whatever, just to test it out. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But, you know, I don't know. I guess I'm not as concerned, for whatever reason, that people aren't going to see my Instagram posts as much as like Facebook. But I kind of, for the most part, I kind of abandoned my page, my Facebook page. I mean, I'll post like my videos on there when I upload them. I'll post, let people know about the Artcasters and all that kind of stuff. But like, I've been hovering around, like, I think I've got like I got to get 5 more followers before I hit 1,000. It's like, I don't even care with that. Other platforms I would. If it was Instagram and I hit 1,000 or whatever, it'd be like, oh, cool, celebrating 1,000, followers on Instagram, and here's a giveaway or something like that. But with Facebook, it's just like, because it doesn't mean it. It doesn't. You know, I got 1,000. So if I have 1,000 followers on Facebook, that means 20 of them might see my post. So what does that mean to me, really? You know, I don't know. I don't know if Instagram is quite at that point yet, because I didn't. When they changed their algorithm, I noticed a little bit of a drop off as far as likes and stuff, but I still get a lot of interaction on that. And I think it's just because I think it's easier just to like a picture and stuff without having to read a comment or anything like that. So there's still a different enough between Instagram and Facebook that I think I'm willing to, you know, try that a little bit. So, you know, and
Instagram by far has been the most successful avenue for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And going back to what you were saying about, you know, kind of your marketing class where they were talking about, you know, sticking to one platform. I think yes and no. I mean, I think you definitely want to have your one main platform, but you know, like you said, whether you automatically post to other, you know, your other platforms, you know, sometimes I'm a little hesitant to do that, just because I think each one of these social media platforms has their own kind of way of posting and stuff. And sometimes you can tell that it's just being shared from another thing. So sometimes like for instance, like if I do a sketch, I'll take one like square photo of it, and then I'll take another like long photo, and I'll post them separate, just because I know when I post to like Twitter or Facebook or something like that, I think the longer post looks better, because I think if you just post that square one, and maybe this is just me, but it looks like an Instagram post. And I think now Instagram, you can use different size posts too or whatever, but I don't know, certain things look better on different platforms. So I kind of use sort of a hybrid method of like posting, or if there's a way to, because sometimes, and maybe they've ironed all this stuff out, because I haven't done that automatic posting before, but sometimes you can tell that it was posted from another platform because it has a lot of extra like type that they throw on, or shared from this or something like that. And that's kind of a turnoff, because it looks like, if you can make it look, you know, even if it doesn't have anything to do with the format as far as size or whatever, if you can make it look like it was natively posted on whatever platform, I think that's going to be better, you know. But if that's too much work, it's better. I think it's better to share on multiple platforms automatically, rather than probably not sharing at all. You know, that's my opinion anyway. I don't know, but I mean, I focus mostly on YouTube, and then I'll share stuff on, you know, Instagram and Facebook. And I'm trying to get better on my Instagram, because I kind of was slacking for a while, but you know, and it's weird, because like I really like the Instagram stories, because for a while I was trying to get Snapchat going, but Snapchat doesn't really, I mean, I like Snapchat, but it didn't really have a way to organically grow your audience. You basically kind of had to pull them from somewhere else. But since, you know, basically Instagram stole their whole idea, all their ideas, which kind of sucks for Snapchat, but because I already have somewhat of a following on Instagram, I can do the Facebook story. It works better for me, because I think it's easier to grow an audience on Instagram than Snapchat for me, or maybe that's just because I'm old. I don't know. But I do like the Instagram stories, but I'm not always thinking about it. Like I'll do something cool, and I'm like, oh man, I should have shared that. That would have been cool. I think people would have got a kick out of that, but I forget about it. So I don't know. It's hard for me to break away from what I'm doing to remember, oh, I really need to share this stuff. So, you know, it's just not natural for me, but I try to make an effort to do that. So,
you, aside from your podcast, or like a live stream like this, I don't think I've seen it. Do you share any of your, like, you just put up process videos of your work?
Here and there, like when I was doing, a lot of it's like speed drawing that I'll do like voiceover over. So like I've got some stuff that like later on this week, I'll post another video of just me doing like these little blueprint sketches I do, and I'll just talk over them or whatever. So there's some of that, like when I do the Mad Genius Hall of Fame, though, if you want to see process as far as like a sketch, those are pretty much start to finish. I'll show me penciling all the way to marker to inking and the finished product. So you can see that basically that whole process. Sometimes I'll go into the tools. I don't go too much into this is what I'm doing here as far as the gestures and all that stuff, which I want to do more of that. Some of it's just kind of, you got to watch and fill in the blanks, because I don't say step by step, this is how I do certain things. There are things that I will do that from time to time. Sometimes it's just a matter of, here's me working on a comic book page or whatever. But the one thing I really need to do, because the thing is, the sketches and stuff that I do isn't really in the same, that's more of my sketches, you know, that's not a finished product. Where I've got a video that I'll probably put out maybe next week. I'm still working on it, but I've got some stickers that I'm going to put up on my online store, and those are more of the style of the finished stuff that I sell, where I actually take my sketch and then I go into Illustrator and, you know, I do, you know, whatever I do to make it look like my particular style and, you know, the way my prints look and everything. So that video might explain a little more on, you know, how that works, but I need to do more of that, because that's the end product, and I don't think enough people see that end product, you know. Other than the comic book, because the comic book's has a whole different look than like my prints and things. It's not done in Illustrator. It's all done with pen and ink and all that stuff, like, you know, like a typical comic. So that's kind of a different look. So in some ways the styles there's a couple different styles there. So I don't know. I need to do more of the other stuff as well. But yeah, I try to do process stuff like that, but I'm kind of, especially when I'm dealing with software, like software tutorial. I mean, inevitably, anytime I do try to do any kind of tutorial, or even when I'm doing the Mad Genius Hall of Fame, when I'm giving out facts, I'll say something wrong. Like I think I was talking in one of I said Beekman. I was doing one on Beekman from Beekman's World, and I said I think I said that the show ran from like 1990 to 1989. And obviously, because it was my own dyslexia, you know, because instead of saying 998, I said 89. But obviously, I don't think that the show went backwards in time, but somebody called me on it, and like, so there's certain things like that. And a lot of times, like, if I catch it, maybe I'll put a little, like, I'll put some type in the video, but I'm not going to go back, and it's too much trouble to go back and correct that stuff, you know, other than just going in the comment section and say, hey, I made a mistake. This is what I meant. And when I'm doing this, I'm just kind of rattling stuff off, and, you know, it takes so much time to do these videos. I don't have time to proofread all this stuff and everything. So, and it goes double for when you're trying to teach somebody how to do something, because a lot of what I do, say in Illustrator, I just know how to do it. A lot of it I kind of learned on my own, and I don't know what all the tools are called. It's the one with the squiggly line that you can adjust your line weights, which I guess it's called the width tool, but I use that tool forever without even knowing what it's called. So that kind of stuff is hard for me. I really have to sit down and actually educate myself on what this stuff is called, even though I use it all the time, just so people will know when I'm explaining it. So those type of videos take a long time to do. So I don't do a whole lot of them. I probably need to do more, but just because of the, you know, that's one of the reasons why I don't do so much of that.
Yeah, I feel like, you know, one of the things that a lot of working artists do, and this is like the Patreon thing and the stores and all that, and it's passive income. I feel like a lot of successful people, you mentioned Will Thierry, he has, I was actually subscribed to it for a while, School of Visual Storytelling.
I was subscribed to that too for a while, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of passive income are these videos of teaching, you know?
Yeah.
Just your process. And I wonder, at what point are you famous enough or well known enough that someone's gonna subscribe to your class?
I don't think it's a matter of fame so much. I mean, obviously fame will get the more people to look at it to know that course exists, but anyone that looks at what you're doing there, Chris, just when you're drawing your stuff, they can see you're capable of, you know that you're a good artist. And if they like your stuff, you may be the one to teach how to do that, you know. And different people, you know, have different personalities, the way they teach or whatever, or, you know, different styles that people might want to learn. So it's, you know, there's no reason why you couldn't do a course. And even if everyone, I mean, there's people that are just like say somebody like a Will Terry or whatever, who's got a whole, basically a school with Jay Parker, and I forget who the other guy was, but whatever, they're, you know, they've got this school set up and everything, and he's been established in the children's book entertainment, you know, field for a while, but you've been established doing games. I mean, you have credit. So there's no reason why you couldn't do a course. You would need to find people, you would need to market that course, but there's, you know, if somebody wants to learn to do what you can do, there's no reason why you can't. And everyone's at a different level. I mean, even if you haven't been doing game design for, you know, 15 years or I don't know how long you've been doing it, you know, whatever. Even if you haven't, you're always a step ahead of somebody else. There's always somebody that's just starting that you could teach somebody how to do that. So, yeah, I mean, if you want to take the time to do a course, I think pretty much at whatever level you're at, unless you're just beginning, if you have some expertise or some knowledge or something that you think is beneficial to somebody, there's no reason why you can't do a course. There's nothing. Now, if you go to teach at a university or something, you have to be accredited, but online you don't. And that can be a good or a bad thing, because like I said, when I'm, you know, that's why I asked about your course, because I listen to a lot of stuff online, and you have to weed through a lot of, you know, crappy advice to get the good stuff. But, you know, there's people out there that may not know exactly what they're talking about, that are out there dispensing advice, and they don't have an issue with that. And there's people that some of those people have tons and tons of subscribers, because the people watching them are people that are just starting off, and those people are a little ahead of their followers. So, you know, that could be dangerous if they're giving bad advice, but, you know, at pretty much whatever level you're at, I think you can kind of show people how to do stuff. But yeah, it's funny, because it seems like a lot of the artists that are, you know, making a really good living, it's almost like if you could teach how to do art, it's a little more profitable than doing art. But the thing that is somewhat surprising to me, I guess it shouldn't be, but we were talking about how, you know, we need to kind of reach beyond our market of our kind of fan base of just other artists. You wouldn't think, because a lot of artists, you know, it's that whole, you know, the whole struggling artist thing or starving artist thing. You wouldn't think that they would have, you know, the money to spend on some of these courses, because some of them are kind of pricey and everything. But, you know, but it just goes with art education in general. I mean, the idea that a university or an art school, you know, is going to cost you as much, sometimes more, as you would pay to go to law school or med school is just so absolutely ridiculous. I mean, yeah, because artists, you know, with few exceptions, artists don't make anywhere near that, and it's, you know, and it's not as easy to probably get, you know, get a job doing artists as it is some of those other professions. So it's kind of ridiculous. So, but that's where these other smaller places like these online schools really can be a benefit, because you don't have to pay an arm and a leg to learn something, as long as you've got the, you know, you have the will, or you have the, you know, if you're willing to put the effort into learning something, you know, without actually having to go to a physical place and sit down in front of a teacher and learn that stuff. If you're the kind of person that can learn online and you can do really well, it's going to cost you a lot less money, and get just as good of an education if you go to the right places. So, so those are great options. And I think maybe that's the reason why a lot of these people that are doing these courses or selling these courses are doing really well, because there's so many artists that I follow that are just doing real well, but it's not always because they're selling their artwork, it's because they're selling their courses. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm not anywhere near really, I mean, I like to offer advice, but the thought of creating like a course, that's a little overwhelming for me right now. There's other stuff I want to do before then, but that's certainly an option, you know?
Yeah, I know. I mean, I've seen professional artists, like, where the courses I've bought in on, where basically they'll just turn one of their professional projects that they're getting paid for into a teachable moment. You know, they'll record their process.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on in the chat. I wish I would refer to it more. But we're rounding up on, I think we've been going for about an hour and a half. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, time flies. So we'll probably start wrapping it up. But I didn't know if there was anything else you wanted to bring up, Chris, before we say our farewells.
I'm good. I mean, if I haven't thought of it now, then I haven't thought of it.
Yeah, well, we'll definitely want to.
I've been kind of rambling.
No, not at all. That's good because it takes some of the pressure off me, especially without Josh here, because it's always good to have this 3 people. So hopefully this was a good episode. Josh wasn't here, and it's hard. It's a little hard for me to carry the weight of 2 people and hold down the fort, but hopefully I did a decent enough job. But I definitely want to have you on back again when Josh is here, because I think that we could get some, a lot of other, great topics going and everything like that. So anyway, I want to ask you one more time, for anyone that wasn't watching in the beginning, where everyone can find you, Chris.
You can find me my old personal site, which is still up, is chrismendozaart.com, or the branding site that I'm working on now, and you can help me get off the ground, is littleninjastudios.com. And then all the appropriate social media links are on those 2 sites. Yeah,
definitely check out his stuff, because it's well, I mean, you've seen him drawing right here. You can see what we're talking about. I mean, he was kind of like, we were working on a game together, and basically I think the game kind of became a lot of your style. Like we didn't really have a direction until you kind of came in and started doing characters, and then we're like,
really?
Oh, those yeah, and I'm like, those characters are really good. I think we need to, and then I think that's kind of where everything went with the particular look of, if you've ever, I mean, it's not around anymore, but the game Miscrits, a lot of those characters I think were largely based on Chris, and I'm pretty sure you did most of the majority of those characters for the game. So
that's cool that you think that, because I always thought you always had the most popular characters. I mean, you had people sending in like figurines and your stuff. That was awesome.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened, but yeah, I maybe had some gems here and there or whatever. But anyway, but yeah, definitely go check out Chris's stuff, and we'll have Chris on again. As far as me, you're on my YouTube channel, so you know where to find me. You can also go to madsciencesupplycompany.com, and you can kind of see some of the stuff that I got out there. And then it's Josh, where you can find Josh is at Quarterly Stories, or all our links will be on the description to this video, so you can check that out. Also, we have a mailing list, and the reason why we have that mailing list is because the way we work the show is kind of odd in the fact that it rotates from Josh's channel to my channel and then back and forth. So you never, it might get confusing which channel we're going to be on. But if you subscribe to that mailing list, you will know, and we try to post like, half hour before or whatever, where we're going to be broadcasting from, so you can find us every week. And usually we do it on Wednesday. Sometimes we do it another day, but if you're updated on the mailing list, then you will know that kind of stuff. So there is a link to that, and we don't spam you or anything. Like I said, we just send out a little notification so you know when the next Artcasters is going to be, because it's not, we try to do it fairly at the same time every week, but it's sometimes it varies. So anyway, yeah, so thanks to everyone in the chat. I'm going to try to post the chat in the comment section, so anyone that wants to read it, and so I can read through it too, because with just me being the only one, running the show here, I didn't get a chance to refer to it that much, and I want to check out what you guys are saying. So thanks to everyone in the chat. Thanks to everyone who's watching afterwards, and we will see you guys. I forgot to turn this back on here. Okay, and we'll see you guys next week, and hopefully Josh will be back. Later, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, Scott.
No problem.